As Mike Donahue prepares to retire, and we all try to get used to the idea, we are sharing many of his milestones from his amazing 44 years here at KOIN TV.
Now, on Friday, it was Mount St. Helens, easily the biggest, but far from the only disaster that Mike has witnessed, right, Mike?
Right, Jeff and Kelly, who can forget the Willamette Valley Floods of '96? A perfect storm of weather flooded Salem, Oregon City, and Lake Oswego. In Portland, the river climbed the seawall, but an army of volunteers held their dry ground. Then in March of '93, the Spring Break Quake. It gave us a wake-up call, magnitude 5.6. No one was hurt, but many of us packed a disaster kit. A story in May 26 years ago made grown people cry. A freak spring blizzard on Mount Hood trapped 13 hikers from Oregon Episcopal School. With their one shovel, they dug a snow cave. For 6 of them, it would be their grave.
When you get out, we'll hand you the packs. Get your packs and just slide downhill.
At Timberline, an heroic search began that would last 3 days. On the first day, climbing leader Ralph Summers and senior Molly Shula walked out of the blizzard.
We couldn't see anything. There was no distinction between like the sky and the snow. It was just like all one white blur.
Searches the second day proved fruitless. The morning of the third day revealed the frozen bodies of 3 students who had left the cave to hike down. On Thursday, May 15th, searchers were about to call it a day when a probe into the snow hit a climbing axe. I reported live they'd found the snow cave.
Inside in a pile were the bodies of 8 lost hikers missing since Monday on Mount Hood, and some of them were alive.
I got a miracle going. It's what makes it all worthwhile.
Parents could only hope their child was among the living.
I heard one boy and one girl, they're breathing, have a pulse, they can't get IVs in them. We're just going to have to hope. At least they found them, and one way or another we're going to get off this damn hill.
Helicopters rushed the 8 to 4 Portland hospitals, where doctors used heart bypass machines trying to warm very cold blood. At one hospital after another, the glimmer of hope went out.
The first patient was declared dead just from the prolonged, profound hypothermia.
By midnight, sophomores Giles Thompson and Britton Clark were the only ones still alive. Thompson lost his legs, but he and Clark survived the worst climbing disaster in Oregon's history. Out of it came an emergency locator device, which some climbers, ignoring that day in May, refused to use.
People were coming into our house for shelter, and they had a couple injured people in there till the medics could take them away.
On the cold, windy night of December 28, 1978, a United airliner en route from Denver crashed in Bonnie Clark's backyard at Northeast 158th and Burnside. David Carlo walked across the street to help.
No, there's no way to forget that. It was probably the most memorable half hour of my life.
The DC-8 bounced and slid 1,500 feet. 2 unoccupied homes were destroyed, but mercifully, no fire, no explosion.
But the thing that first caught my eye was the fact that there were several blocks of power poles that were down.
The plane had circled the airport about an hour while the crew tried to determine if the landing gear was down. But that didn't cause the crash. Flight 173 ran out of gas. Captain Malburn McBroom was seriously injured along with 22 others. The flight engineer, a flight attendant, and 8 passengers died. Even so, they called it the miracle on 158th Avenue.
There was certainly, horrible elements, but the fact that so many of us survived was nothing short of a miracle.
For me, it was a night of frustration. I could only report from the newsroom. Our live truck was first at the scene, but for 2 hours it couldn't send video. Our microwave dish was missing a feed horn. A technician eventually made one out of a coffee can. Captain McBroom wasn't so fortunate. A damaged micro switch had lied to him. That landing gear was down and locked all the time. And if you lived here on Columbus Day, 1962, you remember it. The greatest disaster to strike the West Coast in more than half a century. A cyclone known as the Big Blow blew gusts of 138 miles an hour. It blew gusts and killed 46 people. Jeff and Kelly, that was 50 years ago, will be 50 years ago, October 12th. I was just a box boy at the time. I wasn't a reporter, but I have done many stories on that big blow.
Well, watching all of those stories, I think a lot of us do the calculations in our head. How old were we? And we remember you reporting that news to us. I remember sitting with my parents and watching a lot of it as well.
When I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
And all the people that have moved here since then, they say, what, an airline crashed out on East Burnside? Incredible. And they're hearing that for the first time now. Well, Mike, this is going to continue our walk down memory lane, Mike's Milestones. Tomorrow, join us for Mike's take on the hunt for airline hijacker D.B. Cooper. And Mike has become something of an expert on D.B. Cooper, all the stories he's done on it over the years. So don't miss it. Mike's Milestones, weeknights at 6 during the next 2 weeks before Mike's big retirement.